Hey everybody, Jake here and welcome to the hobby. We have a super exciting video today because earlier this week I asked you guys what you consider to be some of your favorite underrated Pokemon cards, and a bunch of you guys wrote in suggesting what some cards that people are sleeping on right now would be, and you guys gave me a really long list of a ton of really interesting cards to talk about. And I think there is a lot of interesting cards on this list that the viewers should definitely know about. These would just be really interesting. If you're watching, hopefully this gets you inspired. Hopefully you discover a card that you didn't know existed, and maybe it'll catch your interest in some newer parts of the hobby in general. It's gonna be a lot of fun. As well, I would like to announce that I am officially partnered with TCG Player. TCG Player is a website and marketplace where you can purchase all kinds of Pokemon cards, and I've been recommending them for over a year, so it makes perfect sense for us to partner up. If you are looking to purchase any Pokemon cards and you see any of the ones on this underrated list that you find interesting, then check out the link down in the description and it will really support the channel. First up, we have Pikachu, as well as I think like 5 other people who mentioned the Prime cards are really underrated. No one really talks about them at all. And at first I thought you were talking about the Primal cards, which were Primal Groudon, Primal Kyogre, those ones. But no, you're talking about the Prime cards from Heart Gold and Soul Silver, from Triumphant, from Undaunted. Those Prime cards are really taking it back. So if viewers don't know, back in the day we had these Prime cards that look very interesting. Instead of the whole entire body of the Pokemon, all of the Prime cards follow the exact same artistic style where it's really a headshot of the Pokemon. There are some really popular one, which I think is Gengar, Umbreon, Raichu are some of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. And by design, I think that they were experimenting. The Pokemon company was definitely experimenting with different card art design, because how many ways can you really put Gengar, Umbreon, and Raichu on a card? Well, this is actually a pretty interesting way of doing it because it's just the headshot of the Pokemon, and they all have these like glare. If you ever seen the Foresight move in the Pokemon game, it feels something like that where they're all staring at you. The art itself, I'll be honest, was not super popular, and the Pokemon company didn't really move on with these artworks. They never did more of them. There were a couple of Prime cards. I think there's like maybe 20 of them that were made or designed. There's definitely more than 20, but there were like 20 or so with the headshot design. I think they're okay. The big issue is that they're not super popular, and enough people mention that they're underrated that means that some people do think they're really cool. It is a fun set to collect. It's very different, very unique, and they are really affordable right now. The Prime cards are not super expensive. The most expensive one is Gengar, and he's going for around $30 to $40, and that's the most expensive one of all of the Prime cards. So yeah, very underrated set. Perhaps they can become as popular as, say, Gold Star or something like that, because the Gold Star for a long time were not very popular, and suddenly they shoot up in popularity and now everyone loves them. It's possible that tastes in the art style can change so that the Prime cards can improve in popularity. And if you're buying them as a set, it's not super expensive. You probably won't really lose any sleep over it. Could be a fun set to collect if you like or enjoy their design. Lucky13 says the 2002 E-Series Japanese McDonald's promos are underrated. The Charmander, this one needs more attention, has the biggest blue eyes, cute chunky body, and a Charizard hollow background. Thank you for the description of the Charizard. It is really adorable. The eyes on that card are definitely really blue. The McDonald's E-Series are definitely really cool. I think Max Mofo did a video of it that I was watching where he was opening up a bunch of those McDonald's E-Series packs. They're actually pretty expensive right now. You only get like one card inside of every single pack, I think. and a single pack goes for like $200. The cards themselves are worth around $100 to $200 on them by themselves. There are some very popular ones. The Charmander you mentioned is one of them. There's also Squirtle, Pikachu, and a yawning Umbreon sitting on a roof, I think, are some of the more popular ones. The artwork is unique. You can't find them in English. As far as McDonald's cards go, I think these are the most expensive McDonald's promos in all Pokemon cards. Don't quote me on that. There might be a more expensive one out there, but they are very expensive. You're talking about $100 to $200 per card in ungraded condition. Once you grade them, the Charmander and the Squirtle, which are some of the more popular ones, can go for like $400, $500. It's not the cheapest set, but not a lot of people know about it. That's what most of these underrated cards that you guys are mentioning are, is that just not a lot of people know about them. And it just comes down to popularity. Will there suddenly be a rise in demand for McDonald's 2002 E-Series cards? There could be. The art is really cool. I really dig the Squirtle. It's fun to just see him blowing a bubble, and just it's a really cool artwork in general. And you just don't see these kinds of art anymore. The hollow pattern on them are really nice. In general, I really dig the set. I don't know why there isn't a Bulbasaur, so you can't really complete the trio, the starter trio, which is kind of weird. In general, I would agree they are very underrated. Not a lot of people talk about them, but not a lot of people know about them. It is a rare enough set that if there was like a catalyst that a lot of people just started buying these up, it would certainly spike in price because there just aren't a lot of them out there. Next up, we have ECX Passion, as well as probably another dozen or so viewers who mentioned that Generations Radiant Collection, as well as the Japanese Pokekyun set, as being underrated. Generations for sure is significantly more underrated than Pokekyun. Pokekyun is already a very expensive booster box. A booster box of Pokekyun is going for $600 right now. It's not super old either. That booster box is like 4 years old and is already going for $600, which is mind-blowing, honestly. The Radiant Collection, though, is definitely, I think, very underrated. And I think going into the 25th anniversary set, I think a lot of people are going to start picking up Generations. I think this is really the last hoorah before Generations start becoming really expensive. I would certainly buy a set of the booster packs if you don't have them. You're not going to lose any sleep over it. It's a very affordable booster pack set where the artwork includes Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, and Pikachu. So some fan favorites on the actual artwork of the booster packs. I think it's a really nice sealed booster pack set to get if you're looking for something like that. Generations, when it came out, it was very popular for a little while, but what they did with it was they released more Generation products all year long. Every single month there was a new Generation product that came out, and by the end of the year people were just sick of Generations. It wasn't a very large set either. Imagine something like Champion's Path. It was only like 70 or so cards, not super huge. There were some very nice Radiant Collection cards inside of it, and the Radiant Collection cards are actually really gorgeous. I'm going to show you guys one, which is the Reshiram full art from the Radiant Collection, and Reshiram looks absolutely fabulous, and this is a very affordable card, completely surrounded in roses, which I think is really, really cool. You just don't see artworks like this. Pokekyun, as well as Generations, the English version of it, was very experimental. They did a lot of interesting things in the set that they never did again. So it is a very fun set to collect. Not a super huge set. It does have a Charizard. We've talked about Generations plenty on this particular show, so definitely be on the lookout for it if you don't have any Generation packs right now. It has been climbing in terms of value, so I don't think it's going to slow. There just aren't any more Generations packs around. I haven't seen a product on any store shelves of Generations packs in forever. You see other packs every now and again, like Shining Legends and some of the older ones, but yeah, Generations just does not exist outside of the secondary market at all right now. So it is a fun set. If you're interested in something more modern that has a lot of potential, maybe Generations is right for you. Zoro says, I think all of the Southern Island cards are really slept on. I really like the theming of the artwork in the set. A couple of other people also mentioned the Southern Island set, and they have been gaining a lot more popularity this year, although knock on wood, pretty much everything has really increased in value this year. But I think the whole entire sealed set of the Southern Islands are going for around $200 to $300, which is very impressive. This set was very readily available for like the longest time, and now it's starting to become really rare as people are starting to scoop it up. The set came out to promote the second Pokemon movie, I believe, and there is both a Japanese Southern Island set as well as an English Southern Island set, and they look pretty much the same. The only real difference is the hollow pattern. In the English one is a little bit more bubbly, and the Japanese one, I would say, is a little bit more bland, but they are both great sets if you prefer the Japanese or the English. Maybe even get both. In general, the set does not contain a lot of super popular Pokemon. It's got Onix, it's got, I think, like Meryl, and just a lot of Pokemon that most people don't really are raging or raving about. But there is a Mew, and the Mew is by far the most expensive one. The Hollow Reverse Mew, there's only the Hollow Reverse version, there is no other, is actually pretty expensive in both the Japanese and the English. I think it's going for like over $100 for just that one card. The design on it is really gorgeous. If you're a Mew fan, I think this is probably a must-have for you. In general, it's a cool set. It's very old. I don't even remember what the second Pokemon movie was about. I do remember Ash having to go through a bunch of different islands for trials or something like that. It was a long time ago, but in general, if you have some fond memories on, you know, some vintage Pokemon cards, then these can be really fun to collect. It's not a super huge set. It's kind of cool that the cards connect to each other. So if you see the Pidgeot card, it actually connects with the Onix and the Mew card. So it's a really cool design that you can combine the cards to make a holistic picture, which I think is really neat. Next up, we have Brett Pasula, who says, the Pikachu Sun and Moon promo number 227, which is inside of the 2019 Fall Collector's Chest, is underrated. This card is still very undervalued, especially when you're looking at all three promos. It's only going for $2 and $3 is what he says. And I kind of agree with that. If you have seen the 2019 Fall Collector's Chest, it contains the really popular Armor Mewtwo card, and it does contain a Charizard. The Charizard is going for around $15. The Armor Mewtwo is going for around $50. The Charizard, I think, is actually really sweet as well. It's got some nice stripes on it. It's not a regular Charizard. The issue with the Pikachu is that it's just a Pikachu. It's in like the 3D art style of the movie. He looks interesting, but nothing really too crazy. There's just so many Pikachu cards out there, and this one doesn't really wow me. It is interesting. If you grade it in a PSA 10, I think it's going for $200 plus. So there is a massive upside if you can find a mint copy and get it graded, but that's really the only thing I see here. It will slowly increase in price because they are kind of hard to find. So the supply side is fine, but how do you get the demand? That's really what the underrated cards are all about, is that there's no issue on the supply. Most of these cards are actually pretty rare, but there's not enough demand for them. There's just not, the popularity for these cards isn't there. And people aren't fighting each other to get a copy of the Pikachu promo from the 2019 Fall Collector's Chest. I just don't see that happening because it's not a super unique Pikachu. There's just so much competition in the Pikachu department. There's so many amazing Pikachu cards out there. Why would you get this one? You would only really get it if you're like a hardcore collector and you gotta have every single copy of Pikachu. Then maybe you would want a graded one of this one. But in general, it's gonna take it a little bit of time to really pick up steam. It is a rare card. So if you're looking to pick one up, like Brett said, is only $2-3. You can pick one up. You're not going to lose any sleep over it. It's a super easy purchase. And if it goes up, that's great. If it doesn't, no big deal, right? It's not a super crazy card. And hey, you grade it and you get a PSA 10, boom, massive value increase. Next one up, we have Heroic Chaz, who says, I think PSA 8 are being underrated as it is a near mint to mint card. I do not see many people talking about PSA 8s. It really depends. If you're talking about vintage Pokemon cards, people definitely talk about PSA 8. Most people would totally take a vintage Pokemon card at a PSA 8. If you had a PSA 8 base set Charizard, even unlimited, that card will sell in a day, no problem. Super easy card to sell. If you're talking about modern Pokemon card, you're right. PSA 8 is not very in demand, and that's honestly to be expected because in modern Pokemon card, you pretty much expect everything to be mint condition because they're brand new. Why not, right? You can buy the card raw for pretty much the same price as a near mint PSA 8. So why would you get the PSA 8 when you could probably get the card in better condition, ungraded pretty much. So that's why there isn't a lot of wiggle room for a modern Pokemon card. For modern Pokemon card, most collectors will only accept a PSA 10, maybe a PSA 9 if the PSA 10 is really, really hard to get. But most collectors wouldn't really consider a PSA 8 modern card. It's just the same as a raw card to most collectors, and that mindset might change someday. But right now, most people are sleeving up their cards right away. They're keeping them protected. It's not like the old days where people are just throwing cards around, doing all kinds of messy things with their vintage Pokemon cards. Nowadays, most people take really good care of their cards, so it's actually really hard to damage your cards nowadays. It's very easy to find mint copies of most cards. That's why most people aren't going to desire PSA 8. If you have a PSA 8 for sale, most people will say, oh, why would I buy that? I'll just buy it raw, get it graded, and probably get a PSA 10 anyway. So what's even the point? Most people will, prefer to just grade their own cards. I think that's the biggest issues with PSA 8. Vintage, totally fine. You can get pretty much any card graded. Certainly the more desirable ones graded vintage, and people will buy them all the way down to like PSA 5, PSA 4. People will take a PSA 1 Charizard all day long, so it's not a big deal for vintage, but yeah, in modern, it's pretty much PSA 9, PSA 10, or bust. Most people won't accept anything lower. Next up, we have Welsh Poke Collector, who says the Japanese base set is very underrated. I think the artwork on the Japanese cards are also 10 times better than the English. That's interesting. Aren't they like the same artwork? There might be subtle differences in the hollow pattern, but the Japanese Charizard from the base set is really the same as the English one, I think. Maybe someone can point out some major differences. I think they're pretty darn close enough. But I do think I agree with you. They are very underrated. And the biggest issue is really just the language barrier. Most people only want their cards in English. Collecting cards in Japanese is still a fairly niche portion of the whole entire Pokemon collector space. Most people only want English cards, which is interesting because the Japanese base set is older, it's rare. In fact, there's only 6 copies of the 1996 Japanese PSA 10 Charizard where it has no rarity symbol. No rarity symbols means it was one of the first Pokemon card ever printed. This is so early in Pokemon card history that they haven't even created or invented the rarity symbols yet, where star is the rare, diamond is uncommon, and circle is the common. So they didn't even came up with those yet, and they were already printing some Pokemon cards. And the no rarity symbol Charizard, I think is honestly, it should be more valuable than the first edition English version because it's older, it's rarer, and it's probably the very first printing of any Pokemon card really. So it's really wild to think that that is not more desirable purely because it's in the Japanese language and not the English. It just really shows how important language is to a lot of people. They really want to be able to actually read the card and see that it says the word Charizard, even though they know it's Charizard. So the language barrier isn't as bad as most people think. But yeah, I totally agree. The Japanese base set is actually still very affordable. If you want to collect something that's even older than English base set, then the Japanese base set is actually a fun one to collect. You already know what all the cards are going to be. You're not going to be surprised by any of the artwork, but it is an older version of the base set, so it's a fun little challenge if you're willing to go down that route. Meow says the alternative artworks from the tag teams in Sun and Moon are underrated. Some are still pretty cheap, although some are rising in price, like the Greninja and Zoro arc is only $10. A lot of people talk about Greninja because Greninja is actually was voted the most popular Pokemon this year. Greninja is the most popular Pokemon. I think some other ones like Pikachu isn't even in the top 20th. So yeah, interesting that Greninja's popularity does not fully translate over to the Pokemon card. That might change someday, but so far it's not really showing up. I do think that there are some very popular alternative art for the tag team though. Some of the more popular ones include the God Trio, Palkia, Dialga, and Arceus. I think that one's really popular. It's a great artwork as well. The other really popular one is the Latios and Latias Tag Team GX. That one, there's no need to explain why it's popular. The card is absolutely gorgeous. You can probably propose to your girlfriend with the card and it'll probably work because that's how beautiful it is. But yeah, some of the other ones are definitely more underrated. And overall, I don't think this is a super huge issue. These cards are rare and it's going to take them some time to climb. It's just really new. The Tag Team GX cards only came out last year. They're 2019 cards, so they're not super old. And for the fact that most of them are going for, $10 to $20 to $30 is actually really solid, I think. In fact, most of the tag team cards are so popular that they're already being reprinted again. Unbroken Bonds is being reprinted, Unified Minds is being reprinted, Cosmic Eclipse is being reprinted, and that's to be expected. There's just so much demand for them. They're so hot. A lot of people want these. I'm definitely going to want to open up some more tag team sets. So overall, you're right. They will take time to catch up. I think they will catch up because these cards are actually really interesting, and I think a lot of people are going to want the Tag Team GX down the line. In 10 to 20 years, I think the Tag Team GX cards could be considered some vintage chase for a lot of the younger audience members. But in general, it's just going to take some time to really catch up. These cards are just too new right now. Next one up, we have Dio Brando, who says that the Surfing Pikachu Pokemon Center promo is underrated. There's a couple of Surfing Pikachu promos. We actually have a ton of them, but I know which one you're talking about. You're talking about the 2019 playing in the Sea Pikachu, because I actually know a bit more about the Pikachu promos. That's sort of my area of expertise, at least I think. I do like the card. The wave artwork on the card is so gorgeous. Pokemon just never does something like this. Those are some realistic waves. I like the design. The issue is that, once again, in the world of Pikachu promos, there are a ton of amazing Pikachu promos. You have to really be a gorgeous artwork to compete in the world of Pikachu promos. And playing in the Sea Pikachu is an amazing card. Really gorgeous artwork. I think the card's going for around $20 to $25 right now. So it's a decent pickup, nothing too crazy. It's definitely affordable, so I guess you could say it's underrated, but that really comes down to the fact that it's in a sea of other gorgeous Pikachu cards, and it's really hard to stand out. The artwork is good enough that it's already solidly popular, but boy, there's just so many other Pikachu promos to pick from. And if you were to go for this one, it's not a bad pickup at all. I think the card is gorgeous. It'll just take some time for people to really appreciate it more. Most people still call it Surfing Pikachu, even though that's not its name. PSA officially calls it Playing in the Sea Pikachu. It could be also considered 2019 Summer Promo Pikachu, something like that. Midsummer Festival Pikachu. I think it was the official promotion. But the fact is, when you type in Surfing Pikachu, there's a bunch of other copies and different versions that pops up, and that does hurt it. And you're going to see this, is that a lot of the underrated cards, there are other versions of them. So it does hurt them when they're competing against other cards in the same category almost. Next one up, we have Bass von Sweden, who says the full art Reshiram and Zekrom from Black and White are really underrated. I think a couple of other people also mentioned these cards specifically. So I know we have a lot of Black and White fans, and I agree specifically on these two. They are really gorgeous. They are very thematic. I think these two are way better than the gold version. The gold version is a joke. You can't even see the Pokemon inside of the card in the gold version. At least in the full art Black and White version, you can actually make out what Pokemon it's supposed to be. So these cards are really nice. It's just going to take a little bit of more time for them to really pick up, I think. There are a lot of Reshiram and Zekrom fans out there, and I think the card will slowly climb up in value. There are a lot of chase cards in the base set for Black and White. These are just the full art versions, right? They're not even the uber premium version. I think I like these more than the uber premium version, but not too shabby. I think they can definitely climb up. You're just gonna see them slowly tick up over time. They're not cards that are gonna really pop overnight or something like that, right? There isn't just gonna be a mass rush to purchase every single copy of full art Reshiram and Zekrom. But if you are a fan of Black and White, and I know a lot of people are, there are a lot of young fans of Black and White, right? Because it's not a super old game. Most people who play Black and White are just still starting to get into adulthood. So I think once that group of people who are huge fans of Black and White are full-fledged adults and go back into collecting Pokemon cards, they're going to want to pick up these cards. So I think 5 to 10 years down the line, it would not surprise me at all if these specific cards really start picking up the pace in terms of popularity. Next one up, we have Max Earl, says the Vending series, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The Vending series, very, very cool series. Most people don't know too much about these. They're not officially called the Vending series, even though that's what everyone decided to call them. They have like a different name. These came in Japan only. You actually have to go to a vending machine, put money in, and you get like a card, I think is how it works. And in general, the cards are really cool. If you're looking for unique artwork, this is definitely the unique artwork set. So every single card inside of this set has really, really wild artwork, like artwork that you would never see on any other Pokemon card. And I think the big reason for that is you actually have to win an art contest. Like you have to enter an art contest, and if your artwork won, it would be printed on a Pokemon card. So all of the artworks for, say, like Haunter or Voltorb were all drawn by artists outside of the Pokemon company, which is why they look so unique. There are some pretty expensive Vending series cards. Most are not too crazy expensive. Most you can definitely purchase. Some of the less popular ones could be like Geodude or Tauros or something like that. Most of those are not too expensive. There are some really expensive Vending series cards though, like I think there's like a Charmander that's pretty expensive. But in general, the set is very cool. If you're looking for something that's niche, if you want a challenge, then I would say collecting the Vending series is going to be a difficult one. I think they had 3 print runs of the Vending series. So there's 3 sets of it, I think. And it is a really cool series. Definitely a little bit underrated in terms of popularity, but you're talking about a small slice of collectors who are really going after these cards. They are really hard to find, and it is very difficult to find a complete set of them. So it could be a fun challenge if that's something that you're interested in. You just have to scroll through the artworks and see if this is the right set for you, right? Collect what you enjoy. Don't go too crazy thinking about what I'm saying. If you're enjoying these cards, then go ahead, challenge yourself to go after them. It could be a fun set for you, definitely. Next up, we have Splat Venture, who says the early EX era cards are underrated. You're talking about the early ones from Ruby and Sapphire era. This was a little bit after Gen 2, but yeah, still very vintage. In general, the EX cards, and these are the lowercase EX cards, right? The very first time we saw EX cards, they were in lowercase, which I think is really cool. They're not all underrated. There is a Charizard EX, and that card is, of course, super expensive because it's Charizard. But there are some cheaper ones, like the Gardevoir EX. And I think one of the issues is that it shares the EX title. If you type in Gardevoir EX, you're going to find a bunch of the modern Gardevoir EX, and the vintage one is going to be really buried down there with all these other modern cards that share the exact same name. So I blame the Pokemon company for doing that, recycling the same title over and making it more difficult. But the old EX era cards are actually growing pretty well in terms of value. They are still very affordable as long as you're avoiding Charizard. Most of them are very easily acquirable, so it is a fun set to collect if you want to collect some of the early lowercase EX era cards. And they are underrated for now, but there is a lot of speculation on them too. A lot of people are cheering on the lowercase EX cards. They consider them sort of like the younger brother of Gold Star cards almost, and they could catch fire at any moment and become super expensive. A lot of people are thinking the same with like the level X cards. They think that those are the younger brother of the EX cards. So there is a lot of people cheering on some of these offsets, and I think all it takes is a little bit of demand before they catch fire and become super popular and super hot, and everyone needs a copy, and you can't find one on sale because everyone's trying to grab one. So that's all it's really missing, is the catalyst for these cards to become super popular. But if you enjoy these cards and they're cards that you love, then go ahead and collect them, right? Don't let someone else tell you that they're not the right card for you, or they're not great cards or anything like that. Collect what you enjoy and you won't see any issues at all. Alright everybody, that's the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Did you see some new Pokemon cards that you did not know existed? And were you inspired to go out and hunt for some new, more obscure Pokemon cards? I hope this episode has at least been interesting and a little bit enlightening as you discover some more stuff in the hobby, because there are a ton of Pokemon card sets over the last 24 years in the hobby, and we're just about to reach our 25th anniversary, and I know it's going to be a really exciting time. I can't wait to see all the new Pokemon cards that we're going to see next year. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I hope you guys enjoy the ride and join me in being a part of the hobby. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.